I would like to thank everybody for coming to the Winter City Council meeting for Monday, April 17th, 2023. The City of Winter will do roll call.
Councilman Burns.
Here.
Councilman Clay.
Here.
Councilman Hockett.
Here.
Councilman Sprinkle.
Here.
Councilman Schramm is absent. Councilman Clunt will be here shortly.
Tardy. With that, if you'd all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Not bad.
Tried to talk slow.
Council, having had time to review your packets, are there any conflict of interest in this evening's agendas? Hearing and seeing none, Chair will move on to the consent agenda. Council, having had time to review your packets, is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second to this motion? I'll second that. Councilman Burns has made a motion to approve the consent agenda that has been seconded by Councilman Hockett. Floor is open to comments, additions, or deletions.
Mr. Mayor, for the public's information, item number 2 under consent agenda is the resignation of Nicole Ritchie from Communications, and item number 3 is the resignation of Chantel Brill from Corrections.
Any other comments? Hearing, seeing none, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of approving this evening's consent agenda, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it, and this agenda has been approved with a majority 5-0 vote. Having had time to review your packets, Council, is there a motion on this evening's regular agenda?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Clay has made a motion to approve the agenda as presented. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Sprinkle. Floor is open to comments or questions.
Mr. Mayor, if we could add one item to new business, and that is a new hire under the Parks and Cemetery Superintendent position. I have given each council member and the public a copy of what the recommendation was from the committee as well.
Yes, we will add the Parks and Cemetery Superintendent new hire as new business item number 13. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of approving the agenda with the addition of the Parks and Cemetery Superintendent hire to the new business section, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously 5-0. City of Winter will now move on to recognition of visitors and communications from the city. As with all city council meetings, we make a public input window available of 10 minutes for people to address the City of Winter, 2 minutes per individual or 10 minutes for a collective group. Is there any public input tonight? Hearing and seeing no public input, City of Winter will now move on to its first 2 communications that will be delivered by Finance Officer Chandra Phillips.
Fuel bids for the week of April 5th were awarded to number 2 dyed diesel, Schaefer, number 1 diesel, Schaefer, 50/50, Volun Oil, regular unleaded, Volun Oil, propane, CHS, fuel oil, Schaefer. Fuel bids for 412 were awarded as follows. Number 2 dyed diesel, Schaefer. Number 1 diesel, Volun Oil, 50/50 Volun Oil. Regular unleaded, Volun Oil. Propane, Schaefer. And fuel oil, Schaefer.
Our next communication will be also from Finance Officer Chandra Phillips for the new hires in the city of Winter.
The following new hires have been made in the last 2 weeks. Under the pool, we have Jenna Hammerbeck and Libby Petersek as seasonal employees, both hired at $13.40 with no benefits. Under the jail, we have a part-time CO, Mariah Koenig, at $19.65 with no benefits. Under the administration building, we hired a full-time custodian. Her name is Amanda Gilliand at $16.33 per hour, full-time benefits, and 6-month probation. Under the jail, an intern CO, part-time with no benefits, Haley Hansen, $16.52. Under sewer, full-time, Dennis Fiala, $18.85, full benefits, and 6-month probation. In the jail, there were 3 advances. Carl Drapo was advanced as a sergeant, which is $22.56 per hour. Atlas Willowite and Michael Janis were advanced to corporals at $20.31 per hour. These are full-time positions with full benefits and 6-month probation.
Our final communication of the evening from the city of Winter will come from the city attorney, Mr. Paul Jensen. This communication is in regard to planning and zoning, the board, the ordinances of the city of Winter, and a hot topic in the city of Winter that actually needs a clarification for the public. So at this time, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the sake of all people that are interested in this, the city of Winter has for a lot more years than I've been around been a zoned community, meaning that there are zoning restrictions that apply to one extent or another in every part of town, and there is a zoning map that is adopted by city council that establishes which zones appear in which portions of town. Every portion of town has some sort of zoning restrictions to it. And I lay this out so that people understand where the city of Winter is coming from when addressing the issue that has become the hot topic of late, meaning the property on West 6th Street that there has been some attempt to get permission to use this property for some sort of vendor fairs or that type of commercial use of the property part-time in this neighborhood area. And so when we look at this area, the first step that you inquire is, what is this area zoned as? Well, the particular area where this is taking place is zoned as an R2, which is primarily a residential area. When you have an R2 residential area, there are permitted uses that are automatically allowable in those areas. There are permitted accessory uses where those are automatically allowed as long as they are accessory to the normal use of the property. And then there are what is called conditional uses. Conditional uses are some additional uses of property that may be allowed if the process is followed to apply through the Planning and Zoning Office and going to the Planning and Zoning Commission to get their recommendation to City Council for the use of the property under a conditional use. And the Commission particularly looks at the nature of the community and the nature of the use that would be made under the conditional use, and looks at whether or not it's going to be commensurate one with the other, that they will get along well with each other, so to speak, whether it's going to cause any difficulty or any problems for other neighbors in the area, and whether there's any positive or negative effect on the neighborhood itself, as value-wise and otherwise. And all of those things come into play when you start looking at conditional uses. In the area that we're talking about where it's zoned R2, there are specific conditional uses that are allowed if they are found to be appropriate for that neighborhood, and they include daycare centers, a family group home, or a bed and breakfast operation. Those are listed as the permitted conditional uses. Under permitted principal uses and accessory uses, you also have things like schools, both private and public schools. You have churches and you have parks and things like that. Those types of things that are not conditional but are outright granted include the previous use that was made for this particular property when it was used as a school facility for a number of many years. And so that was a permitted use of the property, didn't even require a conditional use for its previous use of this property. However, when the property owners advised that they wanted to make use of it by starting to use it for some sort of a vendor fair type of process, look at the provisions of the ordinance show that there is no allowance under conditional uses for this area for that type of use. And so consequently, when the owners came to the city, they first, of course, went through the Planning and Zoning Office and then to the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission indicated to them, and this is what I was told, the Planning Commission indicated to them that they would need to talk to City Council if there was potentially to be a change in the ordinance, because under the current ordinance, it wasn't going to be allowable, even as a conditional use. So at that point in time, the property owners then made it an opportunity to appear in front of a couple of different city bodies, and I'm referring to committee structure, where they came in. Unfortunately, when they came in front of the ordinance committee, I was not able to be here that week. But I know they did have an opportunity to meet with the committee and to present their concerns to at least two members of the city council that were on that particular committee. And here again, I wasn't present, so I don't know what all was talked about. I can only advise the council and the public of the fact that after that, a number of days later, these property owners came into my office and sat down with me and spent probably 15 or 20 minutes discussing the situation. And I explained everything to them, much like I'm doing it now, as far as how the different parts of the zoning ordinance fit together and what's required, and the fact that in order to go beyond the scope of what's already currently in ordinance, it would require a change in the ordinance in order to even consider that. I know that that they have discussed with other folks within the city government of the fact that if they're not getting what they think they want from their city council members, they, just like anybody else, would have the opportunity to prepare and bring in front of the voters of the city of Winter a proposal to add a change to the ordinance through the initiative process that's available in South Dakota. It doesn't take a lot of signatures to get those things on the ballot, so that's available if people want to take that direction. Beyond that, that's where we're at. I hope that clarifies it. The other thing that was discussed as part of the hot topic correlated to this was the fact that when we have folks involved in any of these types of vendor fairs or things like that, there's a reason that we need to know about it outside of the scope of the planning and zoning. And it just has to do with the fact that we, like a lot of communities, have a process that we need to know through registration who's conducting business within the city of Winter. It's a way that we as the city can provide some level of protection for the citizens of Winter from unscrupulous, in case any were unscrupulous, passers-by and passers through, things like that that are transients going through and whatnot. Well, of course, our ordinance doesn't only require registration if you're a transient or passer through. What it says is if you're going to be conducting these operations, you need to register with the city and you need to have a sales tax license. Now, there's some stipulations on the sales tax. You have a certain level of commercial activity before the state is going to impose it. But for the most part, folks that are regularly involved in these ongoing things may have the requirement as far as for sales tax. What we were hearing through some of the blowback this last week was that other communities don't have it. I can tell you that we did do some checking, and specifically the ones that were mentioned were Yankton, Chamberlain, Gregory, Wagner, and Spearfish. They all require registration of the peddlers and folks like that are required to have a registration in order to conduct the passing business there. But that's a little bit of a side issue. I wanted to mainly touch base on that just because it was a large part of the discussion this week. But that was where we're at as far as with the planning and zoning. And I wanted to make sure that if there were any questions, I would certainly try to answer those, but that's where we're at.
In closing, I would like to thank and congratulate Planning and Zoning and their director for not cherry picking and following the planning and zoning regions and laws as your duty is to do. I would also commend the ordinance committee for giving the right information and doing what is on the books and not picking and choosing to follow some laws while enforcing the others. The City of Winter has handled this 100% correctly up to this point. And if changes come in, we'll follow any ordinances that may go on the books at that time. With that, that will conclude recognition of visitors and communications. City of Winter now will move on to scheduled department reports. Our first report tonight is from the Public Safety Commissioner, Justin Day.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So to start off, we'll go ahead and start with the 911. As you can see, almost 1,800 incidents were entered into CAB. Of those, 781 were 911 calls. 3,921 were administrative calls. Flipping over, this has been from March 20th to April 16th. This is the entire calls, how they got broken down throughout the entire dispatch center with all the counties that we contract with. The next 2 pages are just what came in to for the Winter Police Department and what they went out on, again, from March 20th to April 16th. Switching over to the Winter Police Department, Feeding South Dakota was held on Friday, April 7th. Again, it was another good turnout. We really appreciated what the street crew did down there. They got down there, they tried to make it. They know how important that is to the community and how we try to snake the cars in there. So they went down there and did some work to that parking lot to try to make that feasible and usable for everyone to get through there. So again, Troy and your guys, Kelly, thank you for that. We will be doing the next one on May 5th, and that will again be at the 4-H grounds. Officer Chris Aid is currently starting his 7th week of training up at LET, doing very well. Our newer officer, Officer Brian Remmers, has nearly finished his field training. And then this last week, myself and Chief Dvorak attended the South Dakota Sheriff and Police Chiefs Conference last week. It was an absolutely great training, and Mark and I were kind of talking on the way home, and we're getting with the other department heads as far as in the jail and in 911, and we're really going to start implementing some more of these things that we learned up there, kind of what we're seeing within the industry, and going to start implementing that in our departments as well. A new hire as a patrol officer was made and accepted. He will begin next week. His name is Preston Fitzgerald. He will be starting at starting wage, which is $20.92. He will be on 6-month probation and have full benefits. I've been hearing a lot of feedback. Everyone is kind of becoming a little bit more used to us now, seeing us in that construction zone. There has been a very heavy presence within that construction zone. Numerous stops, numerous citations, asking the public, please slow down. Just so the public is aware, we will be doing incredible traffic control and speed saturation, probably through the duration of the construction. That will not just include the construction zone, that will also be all of our secondary streets as well as the rest of the highway. Our guys are really focused in right now on slowing people down. It's getting nice out, people are walking, there's kids, there's animals. We need to slow down, we need to stay off the cell phones. So Dan, please put that in there in big bold letters if you need to. We will be really ramping up speed enforcement within the city of Winter. Over to the jail. Today's number is 156, currently incarcerated. We are averaging 158 for the month and still at 162 for the year. There were 40 transports from March 15th to April 15th. There's currently 37 on 24/7, and then it's broke down how many are on PBTs, UAs. So you'll see 17 doing the twice daily PBTs, 10 are doing the 2 to 3 times weekly random UAs, 1 is on Scram, 8 are doing the Hope UAs, and 2 are on Tripp County, but they're doing them in other counties. I think Chandra kind of stated these. We had some new hires. Our intern, Haley Hansen, she was at starting wage of $16.52 with no benefits. And then we had 2 part-timers start, Mariah Koenig at $19.65, 6-month probation, no benefits, and then part-time Maisie Slovek, starting wage of $19.65, 6-month and no benefits. And then there were 3 promoted from within the jail. Carl Droppel moved up to sergeant. Atlas Willowite and Mike Janis both moved into the corporal positions. And then we did complete our fire alarm inspection on April 7th. Are there any questions?
What department are the part-times in?
Corrections?
They're corrections?
Yes.
And those that were advanced, are they corrections?
Corrections, yep.
Okay, very good.
Your speed saturation patrols, are you intending on giving warnings, or are you gonna be heavy with the ticket book too?
That will be up to each individual officer, but at this point, tickets are not going to be shied away from.
You're serious about controlling the speed around town?
Yes, we are.
All right, thank you.
Yep. You bet.
Our next scheduled report tonight is from our Public Works Director, Troy Kruger.
Well, I'm going to start with my hot topics for tonight. Cleanup week. Get your stuff out. We just started this morning. Like to remind everyone, no plastic, no cardboard. If you have an appliance that has coolant in it, needs to be drained before we can pick it up, your freezers, your refrigerators, and there's a couple different people in town that do that service. No tires, you can bring them to the dump. And we are picking up in the alleyways. So either the alleyway or in front of the property. Cemetery is another hot topic.
Troy, quick question. Once you go past a neighborhood, will you come back to that neighborhood again or not?
We probably will. We pretty much go all week. The cleanup says that the week of the 17th, so
Do they have to put in a call, or are you just gonna randomly drive around town looking for more garbage?
we go once over everything, and then we take phone calls if we miss somebody. We're not, I mean, we get calls all week long, and we're hustling through the alleyways. Those guys are getting everything that they can, but good, I'm glad you brought that up. If you do set something on your property, I'd like to remind everybody, we always have that issue of, do they want us to take it or don't they want us to take it? So if you want us to take it, make sure it is right along the alleyway or it is right at your curbside. We don't want to take your personal property, we don't want to take something that you don't want us to take. So if we have to make that judgment call, we're going to leave it. So if you do have something set out, make sure you get it distinctly on the street or distinctly as close to the alleyway as you can without blocking the alleyway. But if we have to make that call of what should go or what shouldn't go, we will just go by. So, yeah, onto the cemetery. Got a lot of calls on the cemetery, and people are asking why we're not watering it, why we're not doing this, why we're not doing that. We still are not out of the woods as far as winter goes. This weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we have lows well below freezing again, back down in the mid-20s. So we are limiting the sprinklers that we're firing up. We're not opening up all of our bathhouses yet, just because of those reasons right there. We don't want to freeze things up and break things. As far as, I've had a few phone calls also about being able to set stuff out in the cemetery. This is the time of the year where we would ask you not to do that, because this is our time of the year where we're really trying to get the cemetery picked up as best we can. Trying to, we're going to mow, we're going to go around, get all the winter debris off of the cemetery. So if you can withhold on that until we start mowing at least and let us get things freshened up a little bit. Another thing I've been asked about a lot lately here is we have put up some street signs around town. We've put in several orders. We're patiently waiting for those street signs, especially on the highway. We know that we're missing some signs. We ordered to match all of the new signs that were put up a couple years ago around town, and it's just taking a while to get those signs. So if your block has a street sign missing, I know there's a couple on the highway that have not been replaced yet. They are on order. We're patiently waiting for them to come in, and they're coming in really slow. We also have been putting up some yield signs and stop signs around town. Some of it's due to the winter and broke off in the snow, and some others are at request of citizens that were there at one time and never replaced, or we have a couple of those areas. Water and sewer. Monthly meter readings, a lot of locates with the highway project. They did some work out at the DOT shop for those guys. We had quite a few water breaks here in the last couple, 2-3 weeks. One was at 1234 Sunset Avenue. One was at 702 Tripp Avenue. And I think we have another one in here somewhere. We are training for our new meter reading system. That's again, being held up by, we have a batch of things that are still out on order that are not showing up. The supply line is extremely slow still. And as that stuff comes in, we will be able to work on that kind of stuff faster and faster, but it's just a waiting game right now. We started to do some meter replacements, and we have started to do a little bit of reading with that system. We had another leak down at the dog pound. That was the other one. Monthly water samples. And we've been going around town trying to patch up some of these manholes and castings that got damaged during the winter snow removal season. And the highway project, as far as the city of Winters concerned, our infrastructure, we are pretty much all new in the ground from South County west. They are now starting to work on the north side of the highway eastward with water. Streets and sanitation, cleaning up snow piles around town that were causing some water issues. They're going around trying to get those potholes fixed up. The sweeper's been out a lot. We've been doing a lot of work in the alleyways. We know the alleyways are in bad shape with all the snow this winter. We're getting to them as fast as we can. Some graveled areas in town that were in pretty rough shape because of all the snow sitting on them. And ball field parking lots, just a lot of areas where we had to do some grading to get the ground to dry up and get things dried up. Been out at the transfer station, we had some repairs out there, some cleaning and some building repairs, just kind of tightening that whole thing up a little bit. Helped out with some water breaks, a lot of maintenance work at the shop on the snow equipment before we put it away for the winter. And they're also working on some of those areas are along the residential streets where we went up on the side of the street a little bit with a snow plow, and we peeled some yards back, and we've had a few calls with sprinklers that need to be fixed. If we happen to hit something of yours this year, don't hesitate to give us a call. We'll look at it. And we have a couple concrete projects that we are starting to get started on, weather permitting. Parks and cemetery, roads, seeding graves that didn't come up last year with the drought. They're already out there putting topsoil and seed in those. We want to get all those graves. Going to make a big priority this year to get all of those graves dressed up, get grass growing on everything out there. That's going to be a big effort this year. Picking up the cemetery. We've already had a couple of ball games. Our baseball field is ready to go. Our softball fields are ready to go. Worked on the parking areas and all the ball fields. We've been putting some recycle down, trying to get those, get the potholes out of those. We had some minor repairs up at Leahy Bowl. We always do every year. They did mow and fertilize Leahy Bowl already. General spring cleaning, having a lot of tree damage in the city park, so we've been trimming trees and hauling all that stuff off. And we've been trying to get the walking trails cleaned up a little bit. Light department, they are starting to deploy some new meters. They're working on the meter reading system. There's been a lot of issues with the Tyler, our billing, and Landis and Gears. So they're really working hard on that, trying to get those issues taken care of. We're making some ground, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but we are making some ground on it. Changed out some poles on Lamro. They replaced a big switch over behind Huckleberry's, fixed street lights, fixed the highway traffic lights, pulled wire back up on the Short Street and 11th area, and we still are reading quite a few meters manually. Electric department, Ray, Kurt, and Randy, like I said, they've been working with the Tyler and the Landis people almost daily. Worked on some electrical issues that we had at the transfer station, installing the new time clocks and the hardware for all departments. Ray's been working on that. And then we had some issues up at the Leahy Bowl that I had him look at, and a couple of minor issues in some of the bathrooms around town and whatnot. So everybody's pretty busy right now. Any questions?
Troy, on the meters, is there a deadline with the bid, when they bid them, when they're supposed to be here?
On the electrical side, we pretty much have all the hardware we need. It's basically everything that we're doing right now is just getting Landis and Tyler to play well together.
So on the water side, is there a date that they're supposed to have everything in?
They would not give us a date even when we ordered.
Okay, that's why I didn't know.
No,
if it was or not.
it's hard to get a date out of anybody these days for any of that kind of stuff.
What's your scheduled time frame for starting mill and grind and overlay? The street work? the new streets?
We have not heard from
Yeah.
Bituminous yet.
Okay.
Historically, it's always been a fall project.
Fall.
Yeah, I'm assuming it'll be the same this year. We have 2 blocks of curb and gutter on Adams, so we'd like to get that 2 blocks of curb and gutter because Adams is on the list.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our final scheduled report is from the Finance Officer, Chandra Phillips.
We received, both mayor and council and the public works employees and all City of Winter employees received a thank you from the family of Tyler Brunemeyer for giving a gift, both from Public Works and from mayor and council at the funeral. So our office has kind of had a lot going on too. Troy mentioned about Landis and Gear and Tyler. Brandy has been working with both of them back and forth every single day for the past 2 months, trying to get everything straightened out. They both know what they want, and I think they both want the same thing, but they just don't speak the same language. So I think we have it figured out. We will do our final reading, or our first real reading, on May 1st. And so that'll be our test of if we really have it figured out or not. And so Brandy will pull those readings May 1st. So that'll be good. And then she started, they have been inputting some new water meters. And so she started trying to get those input into the system so that we have some samples to read for Core and Main or Census for their programming that they have. He also mentioned that Ray has been installing time clocks. Actually, you'll see that we have one out in the entryway. That'll be for this building, so planning and zoning, my office, the administration, city attorney, whoever uses it will have access to it out there. It'll also be where, when a new employee comes in, that's how we will collect and get their BioRead scans. We're told that you can only deploy one into the test environment. We told them that doesn't work for us because we have multiple departments that really need the training. So they are going to work to get at least 3 others deployed, one down at the Law Enforcement Center, one at Planning and Zoning, or excuse me, one at Public Works, and then one at the Light Shop, and hopefully be able to utilize those for our trainings. We do have a 2-hour-long training tomorrow. The first training for an hour is with all department heads and supervisors, and then a select few employees from each department. And that will just be a review of what the website looks like, what it's going to look like, how they as an employee can enter in time off, how they can add a new clock in, how they can clock in themselves. And then the second hour will be for just department head levels and supervisors to know how to approve and reject and deny and send forward from there. And then our first dual clock in will be the end of May. We opted for end of May because it has a holiday in it. And so that's a good thing for us to have the practice with the holiday in there in the 24/7 facility. I'm hoping by the end of this next 2 weeks, and it'll be on your council packet, for May 1st would be our shift pay policy. It actually won't be called shift pay, it'll be called time differential pay. And we talked about it this morning. I was able to get all the information relayed for all of the department heads down at the Law Enforcement Center, so I'll be able to present exactly how that affects budgets tomorrow morning at the Finance Committee meeting, so that they can make a decision from there, and then forward it on to the police, 911, and corrections committees from there, so that each of those committees can see it, and then have it at the admin bill, or the administration policy next Wednesday, and hopefully on your agenda for Monday. Tyler told us they can't build it the way we're doing it. It just doesn't exist. And so we're having to revamp how we do things a little bit, and so there will be a policy in writing this time. That way, if anything ever happens to myself, Rhonda, or Brandy, then you can read the policy and know exactly how it's supposed to work. Or if the computer system goes down, let's hope that never happens. Another thing we're working on, we applied and received a FEMA grant for the snowstorms in December. When we initially applied, it was actually only for December 12th through the 16th. This FEMA, the federal government, did issue it up, or open it up for Tripp County from the 12th through the 25th. I've had 2 meetings so far with them, and we have another one scheduled for Thursday with all of Public Works to go through and decipher what all we can apply towards that. So if there's anything we've turned into insurance, then insurance has to pay first, and then any deductibles thereafter we can turn into this grant. Any snow removal during a specific 48-hour time period can be used. Any snow removal for any emergency purposes out at the airport or to get somebody to a home or an ambulance or a fire call, any of those will constitute as being able to do that. Debris removal, so all of the trees that are being removed over the next week from those snowstorms, we will be able to utilize that in our time put in and our trucks being used. Different things like that. And then we also had a pole go down during the first storm. And so we had a generator up for 24 hours. We had a skid steer holding the pole up for about 48 hours. And then we rebuilt that line there too. And so we'll be able to include all of that into this FEMA grant. Rough estimates, I think we'll get really close to $50,000 back. And that will definitely help with these departments and their fuel overages for removing all that snow and everything. So there's definitely a lot of different things we can put into this. It'll be good to have the guys there who actually know what they're doing with debris cleanup. I can just kind of assume, but that's never good. So they'll be in that meeting with us. Actually, you're welcome to attend if you want to. Just let me know so that I know who's there. First come, first serve, Jack. No reserving. So just let me know. They said council and mayor are invited to come to those. So it's Thursday, the 20th. Is it at 2? I don't know. Call me tomorrow when I'm in front of my computer and I'll tell you what time it is. I attended the District 4 meeting for our area. What that is the state is split into, I believe, this is horrible, but I believe it's 12 or 11 districts. And each district has a chair and a vice chair that are serving from the cities within. And I served as the chair for the last year because Becky Brunsing stepped down and she went over to SDPAA, and then they voted me in as chair again for this year. At that meeting, though, we learned a lot of information. So the most notable law changes for cities in general is, as of July 1st, they are increasing the purchase limit for supplies. House Bill 1060 increased the spending threshold for procurement of supplies from $25,000 to $50,000. This is going to be great for us in several areas, including the Corrections Department will be a big area where that throws we were getting pretty close on some lines when it came to our commissary, so now we're going to be good. The other thing on the bid laws is it is allowing a utility to procure infrastructure such as electrical transformers and water pipes. And you can procure those not as equipment, which is a $50,000 bid limit, but as infrastructure. So that puts you up to the $100,000 threshold. But we have to code them as infrastructure. So it'll be a new coding itemizing for us as we go through the coding, but that is going to be beneficial because it doesn't take much in the transformer world to get $100,000. Same with pipes if you're doing a major water project. They have a new municipal liquor license category. House Bill 1176 establishes a new category of on-sale licenses for municipal-owned facilities, which includes event centers, arenas, theaters, stadiums, golf courses, etc. So it would be an on-sale license that only a city could get. There is no limit on it, but if a city owned a golf course, a community center, whatever, you could apply and receive an on-sale liquor license, which means you could have a bar in that facility. Don't think we want a bar in the community center, so, or the pool, but it is an option that is out there now, so it does give us an ability. And with that bill, you do not, as the city, have to run it. You can contract a third party to run it for you, but you have to report the proceeds and expenses. This one doesn't apply to us too much, but there was a new Senate Bill 88 clarifying reporting requirements for taxi cab services. They did change. The Senate Bill 162 provided clarity to the current law and practices of placing time limits on public comments during public meetings. As we know, several years ago, I think it was 18, they actually required that you had to post that there's public input during every meeting. This is giving cities more ability to limit that and put a few more stipulations on when it can happen, how it can happen, and different things like that. SDML was really involved in this, wanting to make sure that it followed the Roberts rules, and also that it didn't create chaos in your council meetings. Emergency medical service personnel are now classified as Class B under South Dakota retirement system. So ultimately, it's saying that your firemen and your ambulance are now a Class B under the retirement system. Not your dispatchers, that did not get changed, but your ambulance and fire hall are. At the time when it was going through, dispatchers were listed on there. However, SDRS had not had any time, nor had anyone really spoke to them to see how that could really affect things. So they are doing a study on it to see if it's something to do in the future. The infrastructure, the Housing Infrastructure Fund, they think they have clarification on it because, it passed last year. Then they had to table it because nobody really knew what it meant. They still don't think they know what it means, but they say we can spend it. So it is possible and it is out there. 70% of the funds must be spent outside of communities under 50,000 in population. It's a $200 million program. So if there is something out there that we could qualify under this, we can call the South Dakota Housing Authority and see what's out there, see if we qualify for anything. There are additional diseases able to be claimed for medical cannabis use. It doesn't truly affect the city of Winter, but we do have a medical cannabis facility in here. Senate Bill 1 adds AIDS, HIV, ALS, MS, cancer, Crohn's, epilepsy, seizures, post-traumatic stress disorder as debilitating medical conditions that are eligible for medical marijuana prescriptions. And a big one that we all talked about was the state sales tax cut. And the governor proposed to cut all sales tax on our groceries. Legislation wouldn't go through with it. Ultimately, legislation decided to cut sales tax in general on everything. So right now, the state sales tax portion is 4.5. It will be going down as of July 1st to 4.2%. This does not change the city's portion in any way, shape, or form. It does not change. So this question was actually asked, and I didn't know about this, but a portion of the state sales tax is required to go to your teachers because the state issued what your salaries have to be. This does not change that either. The state is the only one affected by this. They are the only one taking a decrease in sales tax. And because we have a jail, this one does semi-affect us as well. Truth in sentencing, violent offenders must serve more time. Senate Bill 146 requires the most violent of criminal offenders to serve a minimum of 85% of their sentence in prison, rolling back prior presumptive parole policies, and it's a very significant change to criminal sentencings in South Dakota. From an SDML standpoint, we did not have a stance on this, simply because in me working with the corrections folks down at our facility and in talking to other folks at the state pen, the time served isn't the biggest issue. The biggest issue would be mental wellness. And if they wanted to find a place to put some money, mental wellness would be a great place. So we kind of, SDML stayed out of it, didn't fight anywhere on it. They did put a ban on bills on natural gas and propane. So there was a bill out there to ban natural gas and propane in South Dakota, and they banned that they can't ban it. So it's comical how they say it. And then the other two truly don't affect us. It was a local economic development corporation property value exemption. So if you're economic development, you own property, there's more ability to not have to pay property taxes. And then the no rank choice voting, Senate Bill 55 prohibits state and local governments from enacting ranked choice voting. I'll be honest, I didn't have an election this year, so that was not on my radar to get a lot of information on. I was very grateful for that. On tonight's agenda, I did receive an email towards the end of the day from Jake Morris, and you have two items on your agenda. One is for a change order, and one is for a pay request. He followed up with Reedy this morning, but has not received a signed copy of either the pay estimate or the change order back. In an effort to get this wrapped up, he would recommend council approves each, but contingent upon the contractor accepting and the receipt of the signed documents. So if you would put that in your motion, if you choose, contingent upon signatures from the contractor, he would appreciate that. Oh, one final thing. We change next 2 weeks. So, unfortunately, Jack has chosen not to stay with us, but he will be here through old business in 2 weeks, May 1st. At that point in time, then the mayor will issue appointments and the city attorney will issue oaths of office. And at that time, Chase Frank would step up and he would be in Jack's seat. So unless you want to talk to the mayor about not having to sit next to me. But old business is under Jack, and then anything after that will be new business and conducted with the new council. Okay.
Questions? It's pretty lengthy, but I guess.
That's more of a statement.
It was a lot of information, I'm sorry.
Bring it.
Thank you.
Real quick in closing, had a conversation, did a webcast with South Dakota Department of Transportation this past week, 2 times because I messed up the first one. In that conversation with the regional engineer, Doug Sherman, it needs to be noted since 2019, the state of South Dakota has spent $80 million plus on the roads here in Tripp County. Of that $80 million, $32 million plus the state has invested into the roads here in Winter, South Dakota. You take into consideration, Jeremy, your comment made me think of this, what we've invested into the mill and grind to overlay the water, the sewer underneath, and the city's investment, 3.2.
Between streets and water and sewer last year, it was just a little over $2 million.
But since 2019, we've probably got $6 million plus. So that's $38 million that we've invested into this dying town. I love it. We'll keep investing right back into the infrastructure and keep doing the right things for the people of the city of Winter.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, for those that are listening and not observing, you might want to clarify the use of the word dying town.
Sure, I will clarify. Thank you. I knew I was going to get to talk eventually. In a lot of the comments that were made in regards to a recent topic in the city of Winter, there were a lot of former residents that have chose to move elsewhere that chose to categorize Winter as a dying town, and yet for the first time in 50 years, our population has grown, our sales tax has grown, we've invested heavily back into the infrastructure, so yeah, I was having a little fun with that one.
Thank you.
So we will move on now. Bid openings for the city of Winter. This afternoon at 1 p.m.
The electric transformers were a week ago.
Oh, excuse me, the electric transformers were a week ago on 4/10/23 at 1 p.m. There were no bids received by the city of Winter. So under South Dakota Code of Law 5-18A subsection 5, parentheses 9, CJ Hawkinson is allowed to negotiate the best possible advantageous price for the residents of the city of Winter when he's going out to buy more transformers. Today on 4/17/23 at 1 p.m., there was a bid opening in Finance Officer Chandra Phillips and City Attorney Paul Jensen did a bid opening for sanitation dumpsters in the city of Winter. 2 bids were received by the city of Winter. One was from Sanitation Products, and that bid, it was a 3-part bid. This bid is for 2-yard dumpsters, 4-yard dumpsters, and 6-yard dumpsters. The sanitation product bid came in at $44,100 for the 2-yard dumpsters. For the 4 cubic yard dumpsters, Their bid was $102,420. The 6 cubic yard dumpsters came in at $54,050. When we did the math, it was just a little over $70,000. Chandra will probably add that,
200,000.
or 200,000. yes.
200,570.
Our second bid received by the city of Winter was from the Bonhomme Colony. The Bonhomme Colony bid the 2 cubic yard dumpsters at $46,920. The 4 cubic yard dumpsters at $83,100. And the 6 cubic yard dumpsters at $40,125 for a total of,
$170,145.
so after the bid openings, after the bid opening and review, it was the recommendation of Public Works Director Troy Kruger to award the purchase agreement to the Bonhomme Colony in the amount of $170,145. That concluded our bid openings for 4/10/23 and 4/17/23.
Mr. Mayor, can we have questions at
When
this
we
time?
get to the motion. Can you wait?
I'm not gonna make a motion.
City of Winter has no public hearings. Board of Adjustments, we do have a Board of Adjustment for tonight. Council, is there a motion on entering into Board of Adjustment?
I'll make a motion to enter the Board of Adjustments.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Hockett has made a motion to enter into Board of Adjustments. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Burns. All in favor of entering Board of Adjustments, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. With a unanimous 5-0 vote, the City of Winter and Board of Adjustments will consider one conditional use permit tonight. It's at 325 North Main. And I turn the floor over to our Planning and Zoning Director, Chelsea Luce.
Good evening. I received in my office a conditional use permit from K&A Rentals LLC. That is Liferman's, that currently own Mid-Dakota Meats as well as the building in question. They are looking to put a daycare in 325 North Main Street. So this is a building that was formerly utilized by CCI, and I'm also told it was a car wash. So daycares are listed as a conditional use allowed in a commercial district. The ordinance does not limit the size of the daycare center. There was no public at the meeting to oppose or approve, I guess, this daycare center. And my board was actually fairly excited about it. They think we need 9 more daycares in this, in the town. So they sent this along with their blessings and request that this be, or they recommend the approval of this daycare center. So are there any questions about the building or the permit?
Council? Thank you, Mrs. Luce. Hearing no questions, Chair would suspend the rules and move to, what item is it under? It's just Board of, yes. Council, is there a motion on this conditional use permit?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve the conditional use permit submitted by K&A Rentals for a daycare.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Councilman Clay has made a motion to approve the conditional use permit for daycare at 325 North Main. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Sprinkle. Floor is open to any further comments or questions. Hearing none, Chair will call the question. All in favor of approving the conditional use permit at 325 North Main, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it with a unanimous 5-0 vote to approve the conditional use permit. Council, is there a motion to exit Board of Adjustments?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to exit Board of Adjustments.
Is there a second to the motion? Councilman Clay has made a motion to exit Board of Adjustments. That's been seconded by Councilman Clunt. Drew a blank there for a second. Sorry, Austin.
We need to turn the name tags your way.
Yeah, maybe. All in favor of exiting Board of Adjustments, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion will pass with a unanimous 5-0 vote. There are no items to be considered for old business by the City of Winter. City of Winter will move on to new business. Tonight, there are 13 items to be considered. Item number 1. Council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to award the purchase contract to Bond Home Colony for sanitation dumpsters.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Councilman Burns has made a motion to approve to award the purchase contract to Bond Home Colony for sanitation dumpsters. That motion was seconded by Councilman Hockett. Floor is open to comments or questions. Councilman Clay.
Okay.
Floor is yours.
So, do both of these meet bid specs? Both of the companies, everything's good? They're the same product, basically, you'd say, as far as you can tell?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any way to split the bid out? Can we split that, or is it all or none? Because obviously, we can see the math. The 2 cubic yards are cheaper on sanitation products, and than they are at the Bond Home Colony.
If the specifications had been including a provision that said the city has the option to split them out, then we could consider it.
It was not.
It was not,
Okay, thank you.
typically speaking, that is not normally done.
Okay, thank you. I just looked at, it's not much, it's $2,800 or whatever, but still, it's $2,800. Noting the overall difference is 30,000, I understand the big picture. I was just looking. All right, thank you.
What's the number of dumpsters besides?
The quantities, Troy, do you have the quantities?
50, 60, and 25, wasn't it?
Yes,
40, 50, and 25?
50, 60.
50, 60, and 25.
Nice job.
We're still within budget? We're under budget, right?
Yes.
Part of bid specs would be that they are to be delivered before, or between May 15th and May 25th. Both companies said they could meet that.
There's no concerns about that, either company?
No, actually, I don't know if Chandra had a chance to speak to the Bond Home Colony tonight, this afternoon or not, but we will probably speak to him tomorrow morning. And we're also going to ask that we may be able to save ourselves some more cost on those if we get, go to pick them up. Help a little bit with the delivery cost.
Would that change your motion?
No, the delivery.
Oh, there's not a price included in the motion. Okay.
Any other questions, council? Hearing none, Chair will call a roll call vote. Councilman Burns?
Yes.
Councilman Clay?
Yes.
Councilman Clunt?
Yes.
Councilman Hockett?
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle?
Yes.
Ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously, 5-0. Item number 2, council, is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the change order contingent on contractor's signature for the PCN X058 highway project in an amount of a deduction of $9,178.31.
Is there a second to this motion?
That's like,
Mayor, I'll second that.
what am?
Councilman Clunt has made a motion to approve change order number 2 contingent upon signature from contractor for PCN X05H Highway Project in the amount of a deduction of $9,178.31. That motion was seconded by Councilman Burns. The floor is open to comments or questions. Hearing none, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Clay?
Yes.
Councilman Clunt?
Yes.
Councilman Hockett?
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle?
Yes.
And Councilman Burns.
Yes.
The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously 5-0. Item number 3. Council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve pay request number 6 for PCN X05H Highway Project with contingent upon signatures in the amount of $57,758.58.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Burns has made a motion to approve pay request number 6 for PCN X05H, the highway project, contingent upon signatures from contractors in the amount of $57,758.58. This motion has been seconded by Councilman Sprinkle. The floor is open to comments or questions, council. Hearing none, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Clunt?
Yes.
Councilman Hockett?
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle?
Yes.
Councilman Burns?
Yes.
And Councilman Clay.
Yes.
This motion will pass unanimously 5-0 to approve. Item number 4, council, do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 1049, finance officer pre-authorization of expenditures.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Councilman Clunt has made a motion to approve ordinance 1049. It's an ordinance for the finance officer pre-authorization of expenditures. That motion was seconded by Councilman Hockett. The floor is open to comments or questions.
Mr. Mayor, if I may ask that council amend that to call it first reading of that ordinance. Thank you.
Councilman Hockett, would you second the amendment?
Thank you.
Floor is open to comments or questions.
Mr. Mayor, this ordinance already exists. The only thing that was changed in ordinance is what you see in the highlight, which is payments issued in exchange for items accepted for recycling and payments issued to replenish the cash drawer at the recycling center. Right now, we have no way to replenish the cash drawer, and there was one day where over $100 worth of recycling was purchased. And he has a $200 cash drawer right now. Eventually, that will go up, but we just need an ability to do that. And for anything that's over, state statute only grants authorization to write a check outside of a claims through an ordinance that gives the ability to someone to do that with a limitation on it and what it is for. So this gives us the ability, if someone comes in with over $100 worth of recycle, then they can bring that receipt up and Holly and I can issue a check then at that time. It will still be listed on your claims list whenever the next claims is, so you'll still know when we've purchased recycle and we've written a check for it, but ultimately this gives us the ability to buy it from them as soon as they've sold it to us.
Any other comments, questions?
Have we figured out how to do that on a weekend?
Yes. So there were two major folks in talking to Travis Waters, who's the foreman out there, two major companies that come in on us, that sell to us. Three, actually. There's a bar, there's Gregory, and there's Dallas, or Burke. Anyways, he could tell you the exact ones. I apologize. I might be saying it wrong. But they call ahead, and they come during the week, is what Travis was told by the employees that are out there. So typically on a weekend, the first Saturday, which we're only open for 4 hours, one Saturday a month, we sold $30 worth of recycle, purchased $30 worth of recycle. So it should not be an issue on a weekend. If it does happen, we can mail the check on Monday. Right now, the county has to give them a check for it anyways.
Any other questions? To clarify, the motion on the table is to place on first reading ordinance 1049, an ordinance giving the finance officer pre-authorization for expenditures. The motion has been motioned by Councilman Clunt, seconded by Councilman Hockett. Chair will call the question. All those in favor of placing ordinance 1049 on first reading, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously, 5-0. Item number 5, council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to make a donation of $750 to Elma Small for the winter powwow.
Is there a second to this motion? Councilman Burns has made a motion to donate $750 to Alma Small for the rental for the winter powwow. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Hockett. Floor is open to comments or questions.
So our letter of request was for 500. What was the budgeted amount?
Budgeted was 500. So when Alma initially submitted, and also last year when she came in, she asked for $500. Then she found out in order to rent the facility from us, it actually cost her $750. So she then requested that she be given at least the same amount as what it cost her to rent the facility. So that is what the finance committee did decide, was to give her the same amount in donation as what it would cost for her to rent it.
Yeah, I was just confused because the letter said 500. Actually, it was in my packet twice, my email packet, the
I
letter.
wondered if it was in
Yeah,
there
it
twice, I'm
was.
sorry.
But that was confusing to me.
Yeah,
That's,
that's just,
yeah, that's no problem. I just,
but the
difference.
250 or something, we had to have a check for deposit or something.
Okay.
Council, are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Hockett,
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle,
Yes.
Councilman Burns,
Yes.
Councilman Clay,
Yes.
and Councilman Clunt.
Yes.
The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously, 5-0. Item number 6, council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution 2023-5 credit card.
Is there a second to this motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that.
Councilman Clunt has made a motion to approve Resolution 2023-5 for credit cards. Councilman Burns has seconded the motion. Floor is open to comments or questions.
Mr. Mayor, this resolution already exists. There were just a few minor tweaks that we added in there. We are going to a different credit card company. Currently, our credit cards are under Wells Fargo, and we are limited to how many we can have, and they have to have an employee's name on them. What First Interstate Bank will do for us, so currently, there's one under Chandra Phillips. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's still Chandra Widener, Troy Kruger, Justin Day, and Lori Kalinda. What First Interstate Bank will do for us is they will actually give us travel cards that can be in a checkout process. So it'll show you in here, Public Safety will receive 4 cards, Public Works 3 cards, and Finance 1 card. And then they're hereby authorized to acquire and use those cards for the purchase of necessary items. Does not change what they can use it for purchase of. They can only use it for meeting registration, fuel, motel room guarantees, motel room payment, or any other purchase that cannot be done by the issuance of a purchase order. There are very few things we cannot issue a check for. Amazon has even changed that so that we can pay them by invoice. I think Language Line is the only one I'm aware of right now that will not work with us on that. And then still says in there, card cannot be used for gratuity or alcoholic drinks. And the other thing that was changed is rather than leaving a $500 limit on the credit card, we took that away and said all purchases must follow the procurement policy processes. So they just have to stay in that. And then they'll all be set to a low amount. The only one bear with me as I say this, the only one that will have a high limit on it is the finance office. Because we have the ability to pay bills with that and then receive 1% back. So for instance, our MRES bill that we pay that comes out of our checking account every month, we can pay it on the credit card, pay the credit card off, and receive 1% back on that. So it's a benefit to us to be able to pay some of those bills. I am not saying that the bill paying is going to start tomorrow, because I don't think my staff would appreciate me changing one more thing right now. But eventually, we will work towards being able to pay with a credit card. Still would go through the claims process like we do now. It's just, once the claims is done, Holly will issue a payment over the phone or somehow with that credit card, if they leave it on file, however we have it. We have to work out those details, but that is a possibility.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Sprinkle.
Yes.
Councilman Burns.
Yes.
Councilman Clay.
Yes.
Councilman Clint.
Yes.
And Councilman Hockett.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously 5-0 to approve Resolution 2023-5. Item number 7, council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, the resolution 2023-6, amending the personnel policy manual to include the recycle, landfill, street labor positions. I
Is-
believe Troy was supposed to give us.
Yes, you did
And you
receive
have
it.
that.
You
Okay.
ask.
Is there a second to this motion? Councilman Sprinkle has made a motion to approve Resolution 2023-6, amending the personnel policy manual to include the recycle, landfill, street laborer positions. And that motion has been seconded by Councilman Clint. The floor is open to comments or questions. Hearing none, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Burns,
Yes.
Councilman Clay,
Yes.
Councilman Clint,
Yes.
Councilman Hockett,
Aye.
and Councilman Sprinkle.
Yes.
The ayes have it, and this motion will pass with a majority 5-0 vote. Item number 8, council, is there a motion?
Make a motion to enter into an agreement with Buy Board, a national purchasing cooperative interlocal participation agreement.
Is there a second to the motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that.
Councilman Clint has made a motion to enter into an agreement with Board, a national purchasing cooperative interlocal participation agreement. The motion has been seconded by Councilman Burns. The floor is open to comments or questions.
So this is very similar to the agreement that we have with HGAC by Sourcewell, Minnesota State Bid, and it's just another avenue for the city to not have to waste sources, funds, to go out for bid. This company actually goes out to bid for you. And so it's another avenue for us to be able to more quickly buy items that are needed by the city of Winter, mainly equipment. And the city attorney has reviewed.
Correct. Any other comment or question? Hearing none, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Clay,
Yes.
Councilman Clint,
Yes.
Councilman Hockett,
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle,
Yes.
and Councilman Burns.
Yes.
The ayes have it, and this motion will pass with a unanimous 5-0 vote. Item number 9, council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd make a motion to enter into a contract with MasterCard Credit Card First Rewards Plus agreement and have the finance officer sign it.
Is there a second to this motion?
Second.
Councilman Burns has made a motion to enter into an agreement with MasterCard Credit Card First Rewards Plus agreement and have the finance officer sign it. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Clint. Floor is open to comments or questions.
This is for the exact same credit card I was just talking about through First Interstate Bank. This is the ability for us to enter in and receive that 1% back that we can get by using for traveling or paying bills, whichever we choose.
And the city attorney has reviewed it.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Clunt,
Yes.
Councilman Hockett,
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle,
Yes.
Councilman Burns,
Yes.
and Councilman Clay.
Yes.
The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously, 5-0. Item number 10. Council, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we enter into a memorandum of understanding between the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, Black Hills Care System, and the Winter Police Department.
Is there a second to this motion?
Hey, I'll second that.
Councilman Hockett has made a motion to enter into a memorandum of understanding between the United States Department of Veteran Affairs, Black Hills Care System, and the Winter Police Department. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Clay. Floor is open to comments or questions.
Elaborate, please. We never had a memorandum of understanding with them before? Because just that term in general makes me leery. We've had some of those that have not been always in the best interest, but I read over this and it looks very,
Yeah, everything looks completely up and up. They sent us just their standard form that they send to all of the places that there is a VA clinic or hospital in, which basically just says we'll respond, which doesn't really change anything on our part. If anything ever happened at that clinic, we're going to respond anyway, so.
why did it come up now?
Their chief of police called us from Hot Springs, from the VA, and I think he just took over and just realized that we did not have one, so he said, send it over, and we gave it to Paul.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, Chair will call the question by a roll call vote. Councilman Clunt,
Yes.
Councilman Hockett,
Aye.
Councilman Sprinkle,
Yes.
Councilman Burns,
Yes.
and Councilman Clay.
Yes.
The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously, 5-0. Item number 11, council, do you have a motion?
I'll make the motion to adjust the wages of John Rehak in the Corrections Department to $30.27 an hour for becoming a med aid trainer.
Is there a second to this motion? Councilman Sprinkle has made a motion to adjust the wages of John Rehak in the Corrections Department to $30.27 an hour for becoming a certified med-aid trainer for the city of Winter. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Clunt, and the floor is open to comments or questions. Is this a roll call?
No.
No, okay. Councilman Clay?
I have a question that's not specifically about this motion, but about the title and about the person. Can I ask it now?
Yes.
So, the new law, changing to Class B, will John Rehak be eligible for Class B retirement now?
He already is.
He already was.
Corrections are.
Yep,
Corrections are.
Corrections, all of it is.
Yeah.
Okay, I was not aware of that. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of adjusting the wages of John Rehak to $30.27 an hour, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously, 5-0. Item number 12, council, is there a motion?
Make a motion to pay the claims.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that motion to pay the claims.
Does this motion include the donation to the powwow?
Yes.
Does that second? Thank you, gentlemen. Floor is open to comments or questions. Wait a minute. Councilman Clunt has made a motion to pay the claims for the city of Winter to include the $750 donation. That motion was seconded by Councilman Clay. The floor is now open to comments or questions. Thank you, Mr. Clay. Councilman. Councilman Burns.
I think it was a little improper of Mr. Clunt to approve the claims, since usually it's the last thing a guy gets to do.
Would you like to rescind your motion?
Councilman Clunt's motions has been rescinded. Council, is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'd love to make a motion to pay the claim,
Including the donation,
including the donation to
the winter
Powwow.
powwow. Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second.
Councilman Burns has made a motion to pay the claims for the city of Winter, including the donation of $750 to the winter powwow. And that motion was seconded by Councilman Clunt. The floor is open to any further comments or questions.
Mayor and council, upon review of the claims in front of you, there was only one item that stuck out to me, and that would be Richard's Repair, and it was for Volvo repair. And there is a state statute that does include that you do not have to get quotes or go out for bid on equipment repair. So that is exempt, and that was for $8,344.55. Everything else falls under a contract or multiple items together to reach that over $4,000.
Hearing no further comment or questions, Chair will call the question. All those in favor of paying the claims for the city of Winter, including the donation of $750, would you please say aye?
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously, 5-0. Final item under new business, item number 13. Based on the flyer handed out. Council, is there a motion?
Make a motion
To approve.
to approve the hiring of Marty Peterson, superintendent of parks.
Is there a second to this motion?
I'll second that.
Councilman Hockett has made a motion to approve the hiring of Marty Peterson as the Parks and Cemetery Superintendent. A motion has been seconded by Councilman Sprinkle. The floor is open to comment or questions.
What will the starting annual salary be?
So your motion does need to include the starting annual salary, full benefits, and 6-month probation.
$45,100.80, full benefits and 6-month probation.
You said all that before, right?
Yes, you did. Sounded like it was in your initial motion. I must have just missed it.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, Chair will call the question. And all those in favor of approving the hire of Marty Peterson as the Parks and Cemetery Superintendent, would you please say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously, 5-0. That concludes new business. The City of Winter does not have any executive sessions for this evening's April 17th meeting. Council Chair would take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Jack?
Oh, Jack, he jumped the gun.
He doesn't want to go. Councilman Sprinkle has made a motion to adjourn. That motion has been seconded by Councilman Clunt at 7:58 PM. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and this motion will pass unanimously, 5-0. There's no away that much, right?